So the guy that you see on the other side of me right now is somebody that for the last 2 years, while he's been doing marketing, sales, and growing his personal brand, I've been in the back end setting up the infrastructure to scale our coaching business to collecting over $1 million in total. And today, we'll be breaking down how all this happened, how we went from selling a $100 course to selling a $5,000 product, even shutting down our company doing $0 in revenue to making $100,000 and hitting record months just 30 days later, and exactly how we all did it so you can replicate it for yourself. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, in order to kick this off, the first thing that I want to let you do is just open the scene to how we met, because I think it's a very bizarre story and very noteworthy for how this whole thing came together.
Yeah, we met in the weirdest way. So last year, I ran a coaching business known as Relentless Success Club, and I've been in the agency space for the last 5 or 6 years. I never really intended to ever start a coaching business, but what ended up happening was with one of my agencies, I ended up selling some of my agency clients into consulting as well, and then just honestly randomly through people that I know and through the little bit of personal brand that I had at the time, I started to pick up some coaching clients as well for to help the people start and scale an agency. And around that time, I had a buddy that I was doing that with, and his name was Patrick O'Driscoll. And we didn't really take it seriously. It was kind of just like once or twice a week, we would jump on a call with like 4 or 5 guys. People would pay a couple $100 to be there, and really both of us were just kind of focused on growing our own company. And then right around that time, Alex actually had no clue who I was, but he either followed or he knew somehow about the other guy that I was doing this with at the time. And then those two connected over Instagram, I believe it was. And then as they kind of connected over Instagram, there was a little bit of call it DM setting, or I guess you could call it a DM close. And then Alex paid probably an invoice that he probably shouldn't have paid because it was a random agency invoice for $300 to a guy that he had randomly just met on Instagram. There was no contract, there was no nothing, there was no deliverables. It was just like, hey, send me $300 and I'll allow you to come to these calls. And then I remember when we first started coming to these calls because we brought this kid on and he really knew a lot of his stuff, right? Like he knew like these management principles, and he was talking about some high level business things that even us and even me and my friend Patrick at the time hadn't even heard of. And then a week or two into it, we found out that he was 15 or 16 at the time, and we were just like, what the fuck? And so as that group continued to grow, and it definitely just grew organically. There was no marketing for it. It was just word of mouth referrals. People would come in. We had no acquisition channel. That's all it really was. Alex and I began to connect more and more and more. And as the group began to grow and as we had tons and tons of people hit their first 10K a month, 20K a month, and I saw, hey, there might be something to do this. This might be something that I should maybe spend a little bit more time on, maybe take a little bit more seriously because it does seem like we're making a pretty big impact here. I began to have late night conversations with Alex. And at this point in my time, I wasn't, we'll call it living the same life that I'm living today. So I was actually sitting there in my parents' basement at the time, and I would chat with Alex. And eventually we came up with the idea to actually take this thing a little bit more seriously. And that was around the time where we introduced what was called the First Client Challenge. It was a very unique offer. It was essentially $100. And then at the end of the $100, it was a full course with coaching and all that kind of stuff to get your first client, right? It was to get your first agency client. And the way that we had positioned it was the $100 was simply an accountability deposit. And at the end, if you completed the challenge and you got your first client, you had one of two options. You could either get a refund for that $100, or you could credit that towards one of our upsell programs, which is known as the Accelerator, and we could teach you how to service that client and continue to scale your business. And right around that time, I remember for the first couple of weeks, or maybe even a month or so, Alex just kind of helped me out. He was, essentially just working for free, and he was kind of just helping me out when he had the time and whatnot. And then when we launched that program, I don't remember correctly, but I believe that program did about $10,000 to $15,000 in the first 20-ish days or so, and that was all $100 product, right? So that means we had sold like 100, 150 people on this $100 product, and then as we got all these people into our ecosystem, and as we began to upsell them, that was when I was like, oh boy, like I wanted to bring on Alex to be more than just a guy that's kind of helping me out because he really likes the group. And that was around the time where I started to have those conversations with Alex. I started to, want to bring him on full time, and that was when we, really started to get into business together.
Yeah, even to kind of add some very funny details to that story. I remember there was one night, and this is around the time you were posting a crazy amount of short form content. I asked you how to use this editing software called Veed and Descript, and you walked through it, and we had that conversation. That was the first late night conversation we had. Second one was about selling a $100,000 product, which was out of this world and pretty stupid conversation looking back on it. But then the third one was the one for the first client challenge. And just to bridge the gap on how we were able even to run a $100 product where we gave people their money back, one of the core principles that we followed is what I like to call the driving at night principle. You see, we took the idea of everyone buying these courses and just going through the information and not being able to see results. And instead, we took the approach of, okay, well, when you're driving at night, you can maybe only see the 10 meters in front of you. And we took people that were from places and honestly probably would have never landed their first client any other way. People from India and other parts of the Middle East, kids from Eastern Europe who had been getting bashed when they tried to reach out and get their first client. And they were able to achieve it because we had this approach where we only let them do the one step in front of them that was obvious and would actually lead to results. So that was the first client challenge. And then from that point on, I kind of want you to dive into your perspective, because I know there was another young teenager named Saeed Esmame who we had a video with that kind of acted as the catalyst for a huge amount of the growth that we had in the first client challenge. So tell me a little bit about your perspective on that, and then also while you were focusing on that, what the kind of back end of the company looked like and how your day was structured.
Yeah, so I mean, the collaboration, if you want to call it that, with Saeed was really, I wasn't even expecting that to happen. But around this time, I didn't have much of a following. I only had about 500-600 followers all on my YouTube. Um, and obviously not a whole lot of traffic as a result of that. And then I came up with the idea of like, hey, what if I found like these guys who have followings on YouTube because they existed. Like there was like this trend, or like people were starting to like document what they were doing, or like documenting them failing. Like there was this like trend going on. It's still kind of going on today, and it was all these like beginner SMA agency owners that like had no idea what they were doing, but they had a bit of a following. And so I reached out to a couple of them and ended up building a bit of a connection with a kid named Saeed. He ran this channel like Saeed SMMA, and then I basically just jumped on for like an hour, and I gave him like everything that I would do in order to get his first client. And I just gave him like an hour of free coaching, and he uploaded that video to his YouTube. And he had like some crazy title of like, I couldn't sign my first client, so I asked for help. I think it was something along the lines of that. And that video got like 40, 50,000 views. And when that video, got the traction it got, that bumped me up to about 2,000 to 3,000 subscribers. And then from there, it's just been really a steady increase. Every once in a while, I'll hit a little spike up in growth and whatnot. But as we kind of rolled out this product, it was pretty evident. So obviously, kind of with the experience that I had in the agency space, definitely a lot of the core content and whatnot, I did put together. But then once I had kind of the 5 or 6 stages of a course, I kind of let Alex just run with it from there. And so what Alex had done, which worked really well, is that instead of giving people an information overload, and this goes back to the driving at night principle, instead of just like saying, hey, here's everything that you need to get your first client, what would happen is that when people would join the program, we'll call it, it was on Discord, and they would only get access to level 1, module 1, which was like how to set up your profile to do Instagram outreach. And then once they had gone through and followed the action steps of everything in level 1, they had to submit a ticket. And then Alex hired, recruited, and trained guys to kind of just manage the tickets. They had to submit a ticket. Once we approved that, like, yes, you followed the training, your profile has been set up, then they would get access to level 2. And what this allowed for was ultimate quality control from Alex and the rest of the team that Alex built below him to make sure that people were actually following the training. Because with most coaching businesses, so long as you're teaching something that you actually know how to do, the biggest problem that you run into isn't that your stuff doesn't work, it's that your clients or your students don't actually follow the stuff that you teach, right? You tell them how to sell, you tell them how to build a website, you tell them how to build a VSL, and then when they go out and build their VSL, they don't listen to anything that you said, and it's just flat out awful. So we eliminated that, especially because we are dealing with some of the, some of the lowest of low when it comes to entrepreneurs, if you want to call them entrepreneurs, by just saying like, hey, we're not even going to give you access to level 2 until you've completed level 1. And by doing that, that's why we were able to have a ridiculous amount of success rate. I think when we ran the number, it was on average like 13. It took on average 13 days for somebody to get their first client. We had, like hundreds, over 100 5-star reviews on WAP of people just saying like this was the best thing ever, which was great for social proof and just further accelerated the growth of our backend, the backend offers that we had or that we ended up introducing, and then also the personal brand as a whole.
Yeah, and I remember even around that time, one of the core things that we had really done is we had cultivated this ridiculous, almost even cult-like community in these group of guys, because when we only started, we took on 100 initial people, and 81 of them got their first client. And I kid you not, as someone who's kind of spoken around and been in the online education and creator space, having 81% of people hit a guarantee is a number that I can confidently say I've never seen anyone else hit and then maintain at a consistent ratio. So around this point in time, we're working together for about 6 to 7 months together, and this is, us, funny enough, on a call just like this all day, every day, except the only difference was I was in my parents' room and he was in his parents' basement, and now I'm in that room behind him, if you see right behind that whiteboard over there, and yeah, we're in a crazy high-rise apartment in downtown Vancouver. And going to the next phase of how this all happened, we pretty much dominated the quote-unquote low-ticket space of our entire industry. There were even a time where people were trying to copy the offerings that we had, and all the initial competitors that we set out and were like, okay, these are our rivals, had become people that now we were doing more than. And the thing about our industry was that there were a whole bunch of people in the bottom, and then there were a bunch of guys at the top. And nobody was really in that middle space trying to bridge the gap. So I want you to explain kind of the transition that we had to go through from being guys who we made, I believe it was $10,000 a month and $15,000 a month and $25,000 a month, depending completely on the YouTube algorithm, some of the dead end mentorships that we invested in, and also what happened when it came to the Vegas situation and how it all kind of fizzled up into us learning that we need to increase our prices and have a little bit more of a high ticket partnership offer.
Yeah, so what we did is we ran that $100 offer, and that was, for what that was very successful. The only problem was at that time I had about 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, and you need to sell a lot of people to make actual money if your product's $100. And if you're not running ads and you only have 7,000 subscribers, like, it's pretty hard to do. You need just about 10% of your audience to convert on a monthly basis to make like half decent money. So that was when we tried to introduce a low ticket subscription offer. And essentially what had happened was we said, hey, you could credit it into the accelerator, which was the accelerator / inner circle, which was a $297 a month subscription. Now, we ended up running into some problems with this because we had people, and we were kind of both on the false belief that if we scaled somebody to $10,000 per month, they would pay $297 for the rest of their life out of good faith. Unfortunately, that is not true. And I remember we had a couple people churn, and what ended up happening was we scaled it up to about $27,000 per month, and then it was like $22,000 per month. We had a couple people churn, but I wasn't like whatever. And then we had this one guy churn. Now, I'm still very good friends with this person today. Obviously, he's very grateful for all the work that we did and the success that he's had. He's about 30, 40K per month now. But I remember, like, when we started working with him, he had nothing. Like, he had maybe $500 to his name, and that was the extent of all he had. He had no clients, he had no experience, he had no nothing. In the first 2 months, he hit his first 11K a month. And within a couple months later, like, he was 30, 40K per month. Now, after he had hit the 11K per month, he came to me and he's like, hey, Dylan, I'm forever grateful for all the work that you have done, but I feel like I'm past the stage of getting our first client and hitting our first 10K a month, so I'm going to cancel my $297 a month subscription. And that was when I realized, like, okay, this model's broken. We can't rely on we can't rely on good faith. And the other thing that kind of frustrated me, I was like, man, I took you from, like, I showed you everything. We chatted almost every single day. You listened to what I said. We took you from 0 to over $10,000 per month. And you paid me like $900 in return. Now you're making $120,000 per year, and he scaled past that, which is $300,000 a year. Showed him how to do everything for $900. And so around this time, we also saw a decline in revenue because we weren't running ads or anything like that. The natural churn with an information type business was beginning to happen. Things like that were beginning to happen. And we went from $27,000 a month to $22,000 per month to $14,000 per month. And I remember at the time we had one of our one of our advisors on like some commission, and he made like $500 that month. And then he quit. And I was like, yeah, I probably would have quit too. And we were at $14,000 per month. And I was like, just saw the churn going up, and I was like, we're screwed. Like, how are we going to save this business? Like, and my default was like, I need to go viral on YouTube. So I was like trying to go viral, and it just like wasn't working. So at this time I was in Vegas, and I was not enjoying myself in Vegas. And I was definitely contemplating taking the $14,000 that we put on month, walking down to Caesar's Palace and seeing if I could, scale the MRR that way. Yeah, fix the revenue problems. And so what ended up happening was I was like kind of freaking out, and I didn't know what to do. And then ironically, after Vegas, I flew from Vegas to Scottsdale. And Scottsdale was an interesting time because for about 3 days, I forgot about everything to do with business. Fortunately, during that trip, there was times where not only could I not think about business, I was trying to distinguish between my left and right and walk in a straight line. It was just like probably one of the craziest boys trips that I've ever been on. And just one thing led to another. And then I got back, and I was like, I need to go back to Scottsdale. And I was like, I set a goal, and I was like, if we hit $50,000 a month, I'm going back to Scottsdale. And so then I was like, okay, what's the quickest way to $50,000 per month? Okay. It's probably not selling $297 a month subscriptions. And I want to get back to Scottsdale now. So I was like, you know what? Let's raise the price to $2,500 for one time. I was like, okay. So then I called up one of the guys that were on a $297 subscription. And I basically said, hey, I'll give you, extended access and, a couple bonuses for $2,500. Boom, pays on the call. I call Alex. I'm like, whoa. This is like 3 days worth of a 100 client challenge. Like, this is crazy. He just
I remember sitting there. We had the Discord channel where the notifications
then I called another guy.
in.
Boom. Piff again. Another guy. It sounds crazy, but because these people had been in our low ticket community, because we'd gotten their first client for them, because they had invested all this money into the other programs and whatnot, they didn't get anything. They paid $100. They got their first client. Now they had an actual business, and because it was the founder talking to them on the sales call, I closed 16 out of my first 18 sales calls on this offer. And over the next 4 weeks, after coming back from Vegas and Scottsdale, we collected $69,000. Now, unfortunately, it's not a fairy tale ending, because when I went to go book my trip back to Scottsdale, a lot of my boys were going back to school, so they couldn't actually come on the trip. So I didn't end up going back to Scottsdale, but the revenue target was hit, and from that moment on, everything was forever changed.
Yeah, and just so the people don't think that we just close them on thin air, I want to dive into a little bit about how we actually shifted our product. Because I know and speak with coaches all day, every single day, and as a core limiting belief of what people face, it is their current pricing and the pricing that they want to get to. And I know it dives into the transformation and the results they deliver, but I kind of want you to break down what the changes were in the product and then also the marketing around what we were giving them to actually justify that, because I know a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah, I mean, the product was simple. It was a daily call that they got with myself and Alex, and then obviously they also got access to course content and stuff like that. But the biggest, it wasn't even much about what we did to the $2,500 and then $5,000 offer, the mastermind with myself and Alex and all that. It was more what we did to the others, right? So around that time, we began to restrict access of like I didn't take any first client challenge calls anymore, I didn't take any accelerator calls anymore, and as a result, people were like, it almost created this effect of like, oh my god, I got my first client from this guy. Okay, I got my second client from this guy. Okay, I actually got client results from my client from this guy. Like, I need to start talking with him every day. Like, I still haven't even met with him yet, right? And so what that did is it really increased the actual value that had been created to that mastermind. But in regards to the actual product and whatnot, it wasn't anything revolutionary. The other thing though too is like, and we talk about this a lot, price, when you charge higher, it's a lot easier to get results. Like if you go to somebody, right, and they pay you $5,000, they're probably somebody that you can get results for a lot easier, right? Like when you go to somebody and they pay $100 and they had to save up for that $100, like they're screwed. And the amount of work that you have to do to actually get them results is infinitely harder than if you have somebody with an actual established business, right? Like, you can go to somebody with an established business and spend 20 minutes tweaking their ad copy and add 20% to their top line revenue in 30 days, right? But if you go to somebody who is just starting out, you have to spend like 3 hours with them getting them to stop jerking off before you can even start, right? And it's a lot more levers to pull. So we essentially with the people that were high lever, like with the people that we needed to pull a lot of levers, we essentially let the content do the heavy lifting for them, and then only work with the most successful people that came out of our low ticket offers to actually jump on a call with them and actually be able to provide one-on-one and group help to them.
Yeah. And one of the really important things, and something that we emphasized so heavy during this period, is proximity. And kind of the way that you described it there, which I want to expand on, is when we were selling for $100 and we were there every single day ourselves helping people for that $100, our perceived value as people who can actually help and deliver great results dropped immensely. Whereas when we began to make ourselves more exclusive in the information that we knew we could deliver, and we sold a closer proximity towards us, which was the meetings one-on-one and such, our business just absolutely exploded. So this is where the story gets a little bit interesting, because we had done $69,000 in a month, but a lot of that was hosted on the goodwill of all the people that were in this low ticket community. So we had this really, really good month. And then we had, from I believe 69,000, it was 49,000, and then after 49,000 it was 43,000, and we realized that
40 to 50 for the next like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and we realized that we were completely stuck on the basis of, okay, what is the YouTube algorithm going to serve us this month? And there were times where we invested into some mentorships, and I'll let you take it away from here, but we essentially went through this period where we made a vital shift towards our entire strategy, and I kind of want to not spoil it, but tell you and let you tell the story of how it led up to that huge shift in our company.
Yeah, so I mean that was it. And then the other thing too that happened around that time is once the coaching business began to take off, I began to one by one drop agency clients left, right, and center. Right, it just became more higher leverage to work on the coaching business. And after about a year of that, I kind of had this inkling in me of like, damn, like I'm just a guru. Like I don't run an agency anymore, and all these kind of things. And then in addition to that, I was like, what better case study and lead magnet would there be than if I just like started an agency from scratch and like Chad scaled it as fast as I could. And so then around that time, I was like, hey, let's do that. So I decided to start an agency and essentially follow all of the same principles that I did essentially follow all the same principles that I had been teaching inside of RSC at the time. And we took that agency from 0 to 36K in about 7 weeks. and I documented the entire thing on my YouTube. And around that time, because I was like 12 hours a day scaling this agency, just documenting it, we kind of shut down all of our, coaching offers, right? So we went from, 40, 50K per month, and we kind of just shut it down. Took a step back, built the agency, showed everybody every single move that I took, every sales call, everything that I did. And then kind of off the back of that agency, when we relaunched kind of the coaching side of things, it was like probably some of the easiest money that we've ever made before. In regards to client acquisition, right? Obviously, fulfillment, that was a, big thing that we had to overcome and whatnot. But in regards to client acquisition, like, we had people showing up to calls, essentially applying to work for us with pitch decks on why they should give us money and work for us. We had built such a strong brand and such a strong following and whatnot. And then, from there, it was like, I think when we relaunched that, we collected like $105,000 in the first 4 weeks of launching that new offer. And that's when I was like, oh, that's pretty. And it was like pretty easy. Like, I was still actually kind of involved with the agency a bit. So I wasn't even like working as much as I normally would on this offer. And it was just like money glitch.
Yeah. And I guess to expand on that, it was from December 1st, 31st, and we did like 105K cash collected. It was the best New Year's gift I had ever received, best Christmas gift I'd ever received. And the only reason why that was possible is we had scaled this agency and documented the entire thing, showed all the pain involved in doing so. And I really want to make this clear, there were no ads involved. Not a single dollar in paid advertising had been spent on this company up until this point. There was a link put in the description. Not even a call to action on the videos saying, hey, by the way, we partner with people.
We didn't even start with setters either.
Yeah, no setters, nothing at this time. The actual concept of what we had done was just so appealing because we showed the entire journey of how we actually got to where we were, that when we put that link in the description, it was, hey, I want to partner with you one-on-one in order to scale. And this was the origin of the high ticket partnership offer that I stand by so heavily today. The floodgates just absolutely poured in. And it was the most money we'd ever made in the shortest period of time we'd ever done it. And it honestly completely shifted our perspective. And in doing that, that was a 4.5 grand offer. And up until that point, we had only ever sold a 2,500 offer, was the most we had sold. Oh yeah, 5 grand. And
but it was 4,500 for 3 months.
Yeah, 4,500 for 3 months. So what I want to dive into now is like, okay, we were able to have this explosive growth because we went and documented us doing the literal thing that we coach people for, showing the exact methodology and what they could expect. It's the best case study, the best proof that you could ever imagine. How do we sustain this growth? And then also, what had to transition on the back end of our company? Because a big thing that holds a lot of people back is, okay, what am I going to do when I make all this money? How am I going to service these clients? And that little factor in the back of their head is what actually prevents them from going out and getting the people in the first place to work with. So I kind of want you to explain the philosophy that we had around that.
Yeah, so obviously, essentially what we did is we took all the sales scripts, the systems, the appointment setting scripts, like everything that we did to scale the agency publicly, and we gave it to people who worked with us. And then all we did was we took our most successful students from our past, and we said, hey, like, here's all the content, here's the scripts, here's the offers we ran, here's how we set up our landing page, here's how we did everything. And then we also paired them up with some of our most successful students to kind of guide them through as they were going through and implementing each and every step of the process.
Yeah. And to explain, I guess, how the operation kind of worked. So we started out on Discord, and then since then we transitioned to Slack. But we pretty much set up a way to work and do one-on-one consulting with people at a ridiculous scale. I believe after that crazy month, we had anywhere between 40 to 70 active people that we were working with one-on-one. And the way we ran that is we had these people who are most successful students. We were doing 2 times a week calls with the actual each person that we partnered with, running them through all these frameworks, running them through all these processes, and it allowed us to sustain and grow to this legitimate company to the point where every single month now we're making $100,000 plus a month. We're beginning to kind of systemize and really grow into an organization operation. And I want you to explain the transition out of a coaching business, because one of the big things as a growth operator to understand, and as a coaching business owner, if that's where you are right now, is that that is not your end all be all. Really, if you are a growth operator and you're building something off your personal brand, you want to take it to a much larger scale to make it something that you want to do for the rest of your life. And Dylan, I want you to take it away, because you're the face of this whole operation, how we actually move towards doing that instead of just selling a dead end coaching program, and how you officially revoke the title of being a guru.
Yeah. So after a couple months of this, I ended up essentially shutting down the coaching offer and going back to the agency world. Now, there's a couple things to consider. And a lot of this was in partly due to who I am as a, like, not necessarily who I am, but what I wanted to do with my life. Alex and I were talking about this the other day, and there's two kinds of, internet entrepreneurs, and by no means is one better than the other. But there's the one route that you can take where, you run a 1 to 4 person coaching business, you make $100,000 a month, you profit $80,000 with it, and you just cash flow that. You live the lifestyle you want to live. You can buy it. You do whatever you want with your money, which we did that for a couple months. But the other side of building an online business is like, okay, how can we build a tangible, valuable company that, makes X amount of money and that we could potentially exit for one day? And so I was more inclined to do the alternative. I've never been somebody that's too interested in, quick cash or, anything like that. I have, ambitions of, 10-figure exits and beyond, one day through various ways. So I ended up kind of transitioning things back into an agency model where it's more of a agency model on the front end, where we'll set up acquisition systems for them. We'll create their offer for them, a lot of done for you. And then, yes, obviously there is going to be a little bit of consulting and coaching kind of on the back end to provide support in addition to the done for you agency services that we provide on the front end. So that was kind of why we ended up deciding to switch, kind of going back into the agency model. And now granted, like, one thing that I can say is, like, I personally take home less money running the agency that makes more top line revenue than I did with the coaching business, right? Because now we are, investing significant amounts of money into not software, but development of systems internally, investing significant amount of money into hiring outside people to come in and help us refine our service delivery. We've had to dramatically increase the size of our team. It's become a lot more of a complex operation. The other side of it is that for the first time ever, in the last little bit here, in the last month or so, we've had people that have closed and don't really know who I am, which is something that would have never happened with the coaching business. We have been running ads and ads that don't have my face on it. People have been opting in. People have been getting emails from our people on our team, and they have been closing without really knowing who I am or where I am, or without having watching any of YouTube content. So it is a little bit of a different model. It is a bit more of a sellable model, but those are kind of the pros and cons that you weigh if you want to go into the agency licensing model route, or if you want to just stay strict with a coaching business off the back of a personal brand.
Yes, and that is where we are today, and what we kind of do in that sense. So I got only 2 more big questions that I want to dive into, and the last one's going to be a little more lighthearted. I want you to share some funny stories that have happened along the way, because boy, there have been a lot. But before we dive into that, I want you to kind of share and speak a little bit about as this all happened, because I know if you look from the outside in, there are very few people in the whole brand of Catalyst and what was RSC that even know about my existence. Our customers knew, and some external people knew, but I want you to kind of share, okay, well, you are the person standing in the light, but what has been the impact and what even happened for me as the shadow of the entire business?
What do you mean by what happened to you?
Well, I guess what the involvement was and in what areas that you focused on, where were you working, and kind of just share what the day to day looked like and how it all kind of built up into what it is today.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll definitely, I think it'd be more relevant to kind of discuss how that operation looked like, especially with the coaching business. It's changed a bit with the agency model because I don't have the same roles that I used to. I'm a little bit more all over the place. I'm in sales, I'm in product, I'm in like all that kind of stuff. But especially with the coaching business, like I remember there would be days. And actually, funny enough, the reason why I even ended up in Vegas in the first place was because of what my working relationship with you. There would be days where I would wake up in the morning and our only acquisition channel was YouTube. And in addition to that, all of the course content and whatnot had already been built out. And I would wake up in the morning and I'd be like, I got YouTube videos scheduled out for the next 3 days or next week, next 2 weeks. I have nothing to do today. I remember last year while we were running the coaching business, I went to Iceland and I just, did the work to schedule out the YouTube videos. And then when I went to Iceland, I don't remember how much we made, but I think we made about $8,000 to $10,000 that week. And I was in Iceland the entire time in a random time zone. I took like 1 or 2 team calls at like 3 p.m. because it was like Iceland time. It was like the morning from back in Pacific time. Yeah. But essentially, like, Alex was in there kind of, yes, helping out the clients, but then more importantly, managing the advisors and whatnot that were responsible for, that one-on-one contact with the clients.
Yeah. And I mean, to kind of top off this whole story, it has been quite the experience over the last 2 years of taking as me, who was someone who ran my first marketing agency, showing up to this random call, paying that sketchy invoice, I believe it was called, to O Media, and the company had a different name, and turning it into and really building it into what we have today. Give us your best conclusion.
My best conclusion is to build a personal brand and then find somebody to run the back end, because building a personal brand, if you do it properly, is a full-time job. And it's hard to build a personal brand. It's hard to build a personal brand when when you're spending all the time trying to build a company. What qualities to look for? Like, if you're the kind of guy that's willing to go out there and wanting to just go out there and like create content, and you've built a brand and you're natural in front of the camera and you're outgoing and like, it's probably the opposite of you. Like, true operators, like, you don't want him to be the guy that's sitting up there, trying to come up with crazy YouTube videos or new ideas or stuff like that. You want him to be the guy that has relentless discipline and just implements. So I would look, if I was to go through interviews and if I was to find a new quote unquote growth operator, the first thing that I would look at is like, could this person be my best friend? If the answer is yes, it's probably not a good fit. Well, I don't mean like I mean, if you had no business relationship and like you're meeting this person off the street, would he be like, is he the same as you? Does he talk the same? Does he wear the same? Does he say the same kind of stuff? Is he like, however you are, is he like then he's probably also better off building a personal brand too.
Yeah, and for everyone watching, that's why you see a 17-year-old black kid partnered up with a guy who lived on the other side of the country and is probably the complete opposite of me and everything down to music taste.
Complete opposite to most people when it comes down to music taste.
Yeah, that's
Or
a story for another day.
most people in real life, but when you check the top charts, they dominate.
Okay. Well, we can have a little discussion about country music another day, but I appreciate you watching, and Dylan, I appreciate you hopping on, saving some time out of your very busy schedule. And I hope anyone watching this, the time that you spent here was worth the valuable insights to see what it actually looks like inside a multi-seven-figure coaching business turned into company and holding company and agency, and really just found value in the fact that we're two guys who didn't really take it too serious. We went from not liking our agencies to building this business where we could have fun, and we did it in a way where we got to genuinely change, impact people's lives, and do the exact same for ourselves. So hope you have that, take that piece of value, and have a good one.